The Sunflower Showdown is a college football rivalry that features two teams who do not like each other at all. In the 122nd meeting between these two schools, our Kansas Jayhawks are headed to Manhattan, one of the most populated and booming places in the world. Oh wait, that's the wrong Manhattan. We're going to Manhattan, Kansas, to face off against our rivals, the Kansas State Wildcats, here in the Sunflower Showdown. Last episode, we hosted Houston, and that game certainly had one of the endings of all time. Let's recap for those who need a refresher. Handoff, Jenkins has space. He's in for a touchdown! And with just over 3 minutes to go, Houston leads it by 3 possessions. Passes our team has gotten all year. First and goal, read option. Daniels looks to outrun the defender. He walked here with just over 2 minutes to go. The onside kick is bobbled and it's picked up by Kansas. Impressive as the Jayhawks get back to the line quickly. Daniels with a shot. He's got Graham into the end zone for another onside kick. We're 1 for 1 already, and this one is picked up by the Jayhawks. Piper Gerties from 36 yards out to look to tie this game at 35. It's up, and it is barely good. Probably rather start on defense because I think that gives us the advantage. The offense is playing so well, and guess who it is on third down? Luke Grimm for the Grim Reaper, and now Houston has their backs against the wall, down by 7. First play of overtime, Smith connects with Joseph Manjack. 4th and 1. This one is from around 32 yards out, and it is no good! They're right there. Savion Morrison is in for the touchdown, and Kansas hangs on to beat Houston. Yeah, I've got to be honest, I have no clue how we won that game. We were down by 18 points with 3 minutes to go and needed an absolute miracle from God himself. And somehow, someway, we won this game against Houston to keep our undefeated season alive, as we're now ranked number 6 with a record of 7-0. Our defense certainly struggled. I mean, Donovan Smith threw 1 incompletion, but we had a big stretch at the end of this game from Jalen Daniels, who wasn't overly efficient, but he made big throws when he needed to. Devin Neal as well did not have his best day, but Luke Grimm, out of the slot, was the best player on the field. 10 catches, 243 yards, and 2 touchdowns, basically double in his receiving yards on the season. And again, defensively, we really struggled. The defense is not the reason why we came back. When Houston scored late in the 4th to take an 18-point lead, they didn't get the ball back until the game was tied. Something else I want to point out is that Jalen Daniels is now a 96 overall. I guess he got an upgrade somewhere. It's kind of unfortunate that all the upgrades are done by the CPU. But now he is the highest rated quarterback in all of college football. And given how well he's played this season, I feel like his draft stock has really risen. And he certainly could be in the conversation to go in the first round of this year's draft. Maybe even end up as the top quarterback off the board, which of course is relevant considering all of these college players, their careers will be moved into the NFL with the Denver Broncos franchise that I started a couple days ago on Madden 25. Anyway, let's talk about Week 9 and our matchup here in Manhattan against Kansas State as we look to keep our undefeated season alive. There's only 3 unbeaten power schools left, with Oregon and then our new in-conference rival Utah. And obviously the schedule is a lot harder here in the second half of the season for us. This game is easily our toughest of the year, and we've got more good opponents on the way, such as Iowa State and Colorado. But really, this is the matchup that we've had scheduled since episode 1. Before we take a look at Kansas State, though, I do want to talk about our recruiting for the week. And as I've mentioned, we're in a really good spot recruiting-wise, with a lot of our top targets having committed, whether that's to our school or somewhere else. We currently have the 39th ranked recruiting class in the country, although I really feel like these recruiting rankings don't matter until the offseason and the transfer portal is opened up. So I'm really not worried about where our recruiting standing currently is. Let's take a look at what happened prior to when I simulated the week. We have no new commitments, but a lot of guys are narrowing their list of schools, including 4-star Isaiah Lamore, who is down to 3, but in reality, it's really a one-team race with him. This is how we have our points currently allocated, and let's take a look at some film for a couple guys who I think have a chance to commit to our program before the week is up. And as I mentioned, tight end Isaiah Lamore is certainly a name to keep an eye on. We're the only scholarship for him, and I'm really not sure why. I think he's a fantastic player. Coming from Lee's Summit, Missouri, which is in the suburbs of Kansas City, really not too far away from our campus. And even though he's from Missouri, he's probably a little bit closer to our school than the University of Missouri. He plays for Lee's Summit High School, a football program who's produced some pretty notable players, including former Kansas State edge rusher Felix Anuduke Uzoma. Looking at Lamore, I think he's the total package at tight end. 6'6", 235 pounds, really impressive athlete. He's got hands that stick to the football, and he is dynamic after the catch. I'd love to see him improve a little bit as a blocker, but I think his ability as a vertical threat, along with his size in the red zone, he is a true asset in the receiving game. And of everybody on our recruiting board, I feel the most confident that Isaiah Lamore will be a day one starter, given where our tight end room is and given how good he is. He's a 4-star, but he's also a gem, and I really like his skill set. If he improves as a blocker, I think you're looking at a future NFL prospect with him. The other prospect who I want to highlight is defensive tackle Afia Kiaho. It's a 2-team race, but really JMU doesn't have much of a chance, and I'm expecting to have this commitment locked up going into next week. Kiaho is a 3-star defensive tackle from Philadelphia. He plays for Roman Catholic High School, a program that has developed the likes of Marvin Harrison Sr. and Will Fuller at wide receiver. Now they've got a talented defensive prospect with Kiaho, who is a 3-star, but he's a highly ranked 3-star. He's a top 500 player in the nation. And the Philadelphia area really produces a lot of talent. And even though that's certainly not our neck of the woods geographically, I still wanted to look there because I think there's a lot of good players in that area, particularly Kiaho. I think he's a little bit raw, solid run defender. I definitely want to see him improve as a pass rusher, but I think he's got good size and strength at 6'1", 310 pounds. Again, I'm hoping he commits this week, and I think he can be a starter for us in the future. With that, we have to figure out how we're going to utilize our 140 recruiting hours. We've got 3 guys ready to visit, and that includes JUCO offensive tackle Ahmad Dunham. We're also ready to hard sell with him. This is a battle that we have just entered, and we seem to really be interested in him, which is good because our tackles are getting a little bit older, and this is a guy who I think could compete for a starting job as soon as next year. Running back, Kane McKeithen. It's a 2-horse race with us and SMU. Both us and the Mustangs have obviously overperformed this year, and we both have really good pitches for a guy like McKeithen, who is a Texas native. We are going to have him visit Week 11 against Iowa State as well. Safety, Javier Ayambadejo. Another close race. I think Fresno State's pretty interested in him, maybe Wyoming as well. So we're going to have him come Week 11 as well, 2 weeks from now, our next home game, again, against Iowa State, which should prove to be a pretty fun matchup. We still have 50 hours left, so I'm going to spread those out with a couple other players on the board. There is one battle I quickly want to talk about. Linebacker Devontae Crispin, the top-ranked player in the state of Kansas. I mentioned in the last episode that I think Texas is really going to give us a run for our money, but Texas took off of their scholarship, so now we're the only scholarship for him, and I guess we're the clear frontrunner once again. So with that, that'll set us up for our matchup here against Kansas State. Easily the best team we've played against so far, and it's certainly not going to make matters any easier that it's a road game and a rivalry game as well. We've had a pretty easy schedule up to this point, and now it's going to get a lot harder, starting with a Kansas State team who is still in the thick of things in the Big 12 race, but they've got some work to do, and they have to win this game if they want any shot to compete for the conference. It's us, Utah, and Texas Tech at the top, with teams like Colorado and UCF not too far behind. And Kansas State is chasing us. They've lost 2 games in conference this year. They've got some work to do, and this would be a massive win for their Big 12 hopes. And obviously, I'm sure they would love to beat their rival, who has obviously had a great season. Kansas State started off a little bit sloppy, losing to Tulane, who's proven to be a really good team. Then they lost to Arizona, who's proven to be not so good. Along with that, they have a competitive loss to Colorado, but they did blow out Oklahoma State, who's a really strong team, and their schedule the rest of the year is pretty easy. Cincinnati and Iowa State aren't going to be slouches, but I think Kansas State probably will be favored for every game the rest of the year. This is certainly a talented roster who I think will consistently be at the top of our conference for years to come, led by sophomore quarterback Avery Johnson. the first-year starter replacing Will Howard as the signal caller for the Wildcats, has had a really strong season and projects to be one of the best QBs in the country over the next 2.5 seasons. In the backfield, the tandem of DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards is dangerous. They've got a good group at wide receiver as well. They have a strong secondary, but the question of this team is with the trenches, the offensive and defensive lines, and I think that's where we can beat them. If we're able to be more physical than them up front, then I think we have a good shot. Nonetheless, I would love the sweet taste of revenge against Kansas State in the 122nd all-time meeting of the matchup. Kansas State has beaten us 15 times in a row. Yes, you heard that right. The Jayhawks have not beaten Kansas State since 2008, and we are hoping to snap the streak today, trying to prove to our rivals that the last few years have not been a fluke, and this is not an easy win on the schedule every season, as it's been for the last decade and a half. So Kansas will start this year's Sunflower Showdown with the football, looking to redeem the loss last year in a game that, of course, Jalen Daniels did not play in. So we'll see what he's able to do here on first down. It's a handoff to the left side for Devin Neal. He's got some blocks and gets a solid gain to open things up of around 15 yards. Neal was inefficient last week for his standards. Got to get the ground game going early with, of course, Jalen Daniels being prominent in the pass as he connects with Daniel Highshaw Jr. off of play action. Good play after the catch. It goes for a first down. Daniels, over his last 2 games, has scored 11 all-purpose touchdowns as he hands this one off to Neal, who is going backwards for a loss of 2. Courteous at the safety, Colby McAllister, and that'll make it a 3rd and 12. Play action, Daniels under pressure. He's sacked for just the 7th time this year as V.J. Payne, the junior safety, leads the way, joined by Damian Ayalo, the defensive tackle, as we take our first look at the Kansas State offense with Avery Johnson leading the charge. The Kansas defense, of course, has been inconsistent over the last couple of weeks. Really struggled in the win a week ago against Houston, looking to redeem themselves as it's a 3rd and 8. Johnson looks to throw it. His pass is caught short by Dante Cephas, the Penn State transfer, who does not get the first down. Kansas forces the 3 and out, and they'll get it here on offense. 1st and 10 from around the 23. Back to Neal to the left side. He's got room. Devin Neal with a nice run as he's pushed out after gaining around 11. 2nd and 10 now for Kansas from the 34. Daniels keeps it himself on the option, and he is going backwards for a loss of 2 as he's wrapped up on the play by Desmond Purnell. 3rd and 11. Daniels looks to throw it. Has space. Rushing room up the middle. That's a first down, but he coughs it up, and it's recovered by the defense. A rare Jalen Daniels turnover as the Wildcats get it back. It's Austin Moore who punches it out, and Justice James who recovers it. Kansas State with the turnover, and they will get possession back of the football. Jalen Daniels has not turned the ball over rarely at all this season. He fumbled it twice in week 1, but since then he's only fumbled it once, and obviously he hasn't thrown an interception through the duration of the entire season. Kansas State back with it after the rare turnover as Johnson throws it away on 3rd and 5. Dylan Brooks with the pressure, and again, a stalled possession for Kansas State as the Jayhawks get it back. Daniels off play action, has an open man. It's the tight end, Jared Casey, who's able to get the first down, and Kansas will move the chains. Following play, it's an RPO screen for Lawrence Arnold. He's got room to run. Arnold inside the 25 with a huge gain of around 32 yards. Now in the red zone at around the 14, it is a 2nd and 10 with a minute and a half to go here in the first. Daniels looks to throw it. Under pressure, can't get rid of it. He is sacked. Brendan Mott brings him down, and that'll make it a 3rd down and 20. Off the fake, Daniels on the run, rolls right. Fires on the slant, it's caught by Grimm, and he gets a solid gain of around 14 yards, but that's not going to be enough. That'll bring out the field goal team. 27-yarder for Owen Piper-Gurgis with 13 mile-an-hour winds to the right. It's up, and it squeaks through. So Kansas is on the board. They lead at 3-0 with the field goal for Piper-Gurgis as Kansas State looks to respond, but that'll wrap up the first quarter. A defensive battle so far. The Jayhawk defense, coming off a rough game last week, has looked really strong today. Kansas State only has 17 yards. They haven't gotten a first down yet. While our offense has been solid, we're coming off our best drive of the game, but only we're able to settle for 3. On second down, Avery Johnson has a wide open man, but it's overthrown. That's a touchdown for Dante Cephas, but the pass was offline. 3rd and 6 now. Johnson under pressure, evades the sack from Dylan Brooks, and throws it away. Kansas State had a touchdown gift wrap for them on that drive, but with a missed throw by Avery Johnson, Kansas holds on to their lead. It's 3-0. Here's Jalen Daniels on the run here on first down. Fires it into a tight window, and it's caught by Lawrence Arnold, who brings it past the 50. With 3 defenders in the area, Daniels launches a strike. 3rd and 6. He wants it all, and it's broken up. Looking for Quentin Skinner. 4th and 6. Would you look at this? They're going to go for it. Ballsy play call as Daniels keeps it. Late pitch for Devin Neal. He's got the 1st and more into the red zone. Tries to hurdle a man, and he's wrapped up at the 15. That was a gutsy play call by head coach Puma Whitlock. They weren't really in 4-down territory, but they still get it. On the out route, there's Arnold, who gets it to the 2-yard line. 1st and goal now. Daniels hands it off for Devin Neal, who pushes his way forward for a score. And the Jayhawks get the first touchdown of the game. It's now 10-0 Kansas. A gutsy 4th down conversion leads to an exclamation point from Devin Neal. And now the Kansas State Wildcats really got to respond, down by multiple scores in what has been a rough showing for them offensively. 2nd and 3 here for Kansas State at around the 20-yard line. Johnson with a reverse. It's Dante Cephas. 1st down as he gets around 10 or 11. Kansas State using some trickery. They've got to be more creative with their play calls, such as that one. 2nd and inches, around halfway through the quarter. DJ Giddens up the middle with a 1st down, powering his way forward to midfield. Kansas State now has it at around the 41. Their offense is finally starting to show some signs of life. 2nd and 1. Johnson, it's a screen. He's got Giddens with blocks. DJ Giddens to the 31. And Kansas State continues to move the ball quite well. But now it's a 3rd down. 3rd and 1. Handoff for Giddens. He got a 1st down into the red zone. Past the 15 to the 14. Now 2nd and 7 here for Kansas State. They are inching closer and closer as they look to make it a one-score game. Johnson on the slant, connects with his tight end, and that will go to the 1. Garrett Oakley, the redshirt sophomore. 1st and goal. Dylan Edwards, the transfer from Colorado, is in for a score, and the Wildcats are making it a game. It's 10-7. Kansas State has not gotten anything on offense prior to that play, but finally they're able to connect for a touchdown, and it's 10-7. Jayhawks back with it, 3rd and 3, hoping Kansas State isn't able to get momentum off of their previous score, and the best way to do so is respond. Daniels calling for an audible here on 3rd and 3 as he looks to throw it under pressure, sails it up, it's incomplete. Lawrence Arnold was supposed to go deep. Kansas State was in cover 1, and Arnold had plenty of space to go downfield, but there was some miscommunication there, I guess, with the audible. Daniels was hit as he threw as well, and that'll force a punt. On 2nd and 5, DJ Giddens on the screen brings it to around the 45. Kansas State continues to go slow and steady, not relying on big plays, but solid chunks of 10 to 15 yards. Johnson under pressure. It's caught by Oakley, but just shy of the yard to gain there on 3rd and 1. And with Kansas State appearing to kick a field goal, the Jayhawks call time. However, Kansas State's going to change their mind and go for it. Johnson has an open man. It's Garrett Oakley for the 1st down. So Kansas called the timeout, expecting them to kick, hoping to get the ball back. But Kansas State pulls out the Uno reverse card, making the Jayhawks burn a timeout, and they keep the drive going as it's Oakley again, his 6th reception of the first half. And that brings Kansas State into the red zone here as this clock ticks away. On 1st down, into the end zone, it's caught for a touchdown. Kansas State takes the lead. Jaden Jackson, the redshirt senior, makes the play, and it's 14-10. The Kansas State offense had nothing going for them for the first 15 minutes of the game, but it appears they have woken up, taking the lead late in the first half. And to make matters worse for the Jayhawks, remember Kansas State starts with the ball in the second half, so it would be ideal if we can get something going here on this possession. Graham brings it to around the 50. Kansas elects not to use one of their 2 timeouts, going to no huddle. Daniels on the run. He has some room and rushes for the 1st down, breaking the tackle, and Kansas will call a timeout. They're second. So they've got to figure out how to possibly get in field goal range to get themselves the choice if they want to kick or go for the touchdown. With under 10 seconds, short throw here for Devin Neal. He cannot outrun the defender, and they're going to call their last timeout with around 5 seconds left on the clock. So what do you do here? Do you try to get closer? Do you take a shot for the end zone? Ultimately, they're going to bring the field goal unit out. It's a 53-yarder for Owen Piper-Gerdes. It would be his longest of the year. And it's no good! I don't think it had the distance, and it was wide to the right. Kick is no good with a second to go. We don't really trust Owen Piper-Gerdes from this range, but given the lack of time here in the first half, we didn't really have much of the choice, especially considering we were out of timeouts. And with that, going into halftime, it's 14-10 in favor of Kansas State. We were in control for most of this half, and we let it slip away towards the end. Kansas State didn't need many big plays on offense, but again, consistent runs, consistent passes. That was the blueprint for the Wildcats, who appear to have momentum. And remember, they start with the ball here in the third quarter, so they've got a nice opportunity here to look to add to this lead. As for our offense, we've been okay. It's been up and down, inconsistent. We need the offense to be a little bit more steady here in the second half. 2nd and 10 here to open things up from around the 13 for Kansas State. DJ Giddens to the left side. He's got room. Past the 30, and he's wrapped up out of bounds by Kobe Bryant. An efficient day on the ground for DJ Giddens. 10 carries for 75 yards. 2nd and 5. Back to Giddens. Up the middle. 1st and more as he takes a shot late. It looked like it was Marvin Grant with the hit, but not before. Giddens gets 11, and Kansas State's offense looks right back to business, moving it down the field nicely, but Johnson is sacked. The true freshman, Dekias Brinkley, with his 12th sack of the year. All this kid does is get to the quarterback as he makes another play. And on 3rd and 14, that pass is broken up by Caleb Purdy. So the Jayhawk defense comes up with a stop, and Kansas State will have to punt this one away. So a big defensive possession there for Kansas as Grimm is going to let this one go. And that proves to be a mistake. What a punt. Down at the 3. So Kansas is going to have some work to do. They're just going to try to run the ball, get out of safety territory as Neal jukes away from the defender. He's got space. Nobody's in front of him. There he goes. 35-30, 25-20, 10-5. Touchdown for Devin Neal. 97 yards to the house with no flags. And Kansas takes the lead. What a run for Devin Neal. The longest play of our entire season by far. We had to start with the ball at the 3-yard line. We were running it up the middle just to try to get further away from the end zone. But with Devin Neal in the backfield, anytime he gets the ball, can turn into that. Kansas regains the lead with the 97-yard score for Devin Neal. 17-14. The Jayhawks with the momentum back early in the 3rd. 2nd and 6 here for Kansas State. Avery Johnson under pressure looks to avoid the sack, and he cannot. A number of defenders there in the backfield. The pressure led by Dylan Wadke, and then the linebacker Cornell Wheeler finishes it off. 3rd and 12. Johnson up the middle with a strike for a 1st down. O.J. Burrows nearly able to make a play on the ball, but he's unable to get to it quick enough as Jace Brown gets the conversion. 2nd and inches. Here's DJ Giddens up the middle with a 1st and more as he brings it to the 40 and is now over the century mark in yardage. Now around 3 to go here in the 3rd. 2nd and 5 here for Kansas State. Johnson looks to throw it up the middle. He connects with Jace Brown once again. That's a 1st down inside the 20. So Kansas State responding well off of the big run by Devin Neal as they look to get this lead back. 1st and goal. DJ Giddens up the middle. Plows through for a score. And the Wildcats are back on top. DJ Giddens with the touchdown. He strikes the pose as every Kansas State player has today. Why are they all going for Heisman poses when none of them have a chance for the award? I mean, at least DJ Giddens is good. The other guys who scored are backup caliber players. 21-17, Daniels on the run. Going to keep it himself. Gets a block from Arnold. Still in bounds, and he gets it to the 45. Lawrence Arnold was wide open that whole time, but Daniel saw all that extra rushing room he could get, especially with Arnold's following as a blocker. 2nd and 5, up the middle. Hauled in by Jared Casey inside the red zone. Kansas making quick work of this possession as they want this lead back. Devin Neal to the outside. Gets a gain of around 1 or 2, and that'll wrap up a busy third quarter. Kansas barely has had the ball. Of course, the 97-yard touchdown by Neal headlining things as the Jayhawks trail 21-17, but they are marching as they look to keep their undefeated season and their top 10 ranking in place. We'll see here in the red zone if they can regain the lead, as it is a 3rd and 9 to get things started. Up the middle, Devin Neal cannot hang on as it is broken up incomplete. I think it's too far away from the first down marker to consider going for it. So here comes the field goal team. 35-yarder for Piper Gerties is good. And Kansas State holds on to the lead, but the deficit is within 1. As it is now 21-20. Here's DJ Giddens to the left side, losing yardage on 2nd down. Wrapped up on the play by Dylan Wudke. 3rd down and 8 now. Johnson downfield is a wide open man. It's Brown who breaks a tackle and is wrapped up by Brian Dilworth at corner, getting some snaps on the outside with Mello Dotson getting banged up on the previous possession. 2nd and 8, play action. Johnson under pressure, and he is sacked. It's J.B. Brown in the backfield for his sack, and that'll make it a 3rd down and 17 for Kansas State. With pretty much everybody in motion, Johnson finds himself alone in the backfield as it looks like a quick screen, and it's picked! Kobe Bryant with the interception! Nobody's in front of him! Showboating into the end zone for a pick 6! And Kansas regains the lead here in the 4th. Kobe Bean Bryant with the interception, and he takes it for a house call. His 2nd INT of the year. Bryant, the All-American corner, reads the play perfectly, sees the screen coming from a mile away, jumps the route, gets a little bit excited, but luckily he's still able to take it all the way for a touchdown, and now Kansas looks to go for 2 here, trying to make it a clean 7-point game. Daniels under pressure. It's caught by Casey, who will not get it. Nice stop there for the Wildcats, and the lead stays at 5. 26-21 with 6.5 to go. 2nd and 7. Giddens doesn't get anything. Might have lost a yard. Devin Dye brings him down, and that'll lead us to a pivotal play. 3rd down and 9. Johnson looks to throw it. Under pressure. Downfield for Jaden Jackson, who gets it past midfield. Not an easy throw to make for Johnson with the pressure in his face, but he connects for a 1st down. Following play, under 6 to go. It looks like it's a reverse. Jace Brown keeps it, and Brown gets a 1st down to around the 31-yard line for a gain of 16. Kansas State now in the red zone. Johnson goes short. It's Garrett Oakley, the tight end, and he brings it to the 5. The Wildcats are getting closer and closer as they look to get this lead back. 2nd and goal, under 4 to go. Johnson keeps it himself. He's in. Kansas State regains the lead with a rushing touchdown for sophomore quarterback Avery Johnson. 27-26. I would have to imagine they're going to go for 2, and we'll see if they can add to the lead. Johnson showing off his mobility there as he's able to break the edge, get the rushing score, and now we'll see if they can punch in the 2 and look to make it a field goal deficit. Johnson, short throw is caught by Jackson as it's now 29-26, and now the offense returns. Our offense has been at their best under pressure, but can they do it again? The stakes are higher. Rivalry game on the road against the best team we've seen all year. There's a good start. Trevor Wilson with the 1st down before taking a shot and around the 42-yard line. 3rd and 8. Final play before the 2-minute warning. Daniels looks for the sideline. It's Wilson. Did he get a foot in bounds? Come on, we got to see if he got the 1st down. And he did. The 2-minute warning graphic was there for way too long, but Trevor Wilson was able to get a foot in. Kansas close to field goal range. All they theoretically need is 3 to tie it. 2nd and 5. Devin Neal on the run. He gets around 4, and that sets us up with a pivotal 3rd and 1 because Kansas really isn't in field goal range yet. I'd feel more comfortable if they got it. Risky throw. It's caught for the 1st by Casey. He really was not open. That was not the correct read. Kansas is lucky that worked as Luke Grimm on the very next play gets around 13, and now Kansas has it at the goal line. 3rd and goal. Handoff for Devin Neal, and he does not get it. The Wildcats with the stop. They are not going to call a timeout, oddly enough. And so Kansas is going to look to chew as much clock as possible, and they will bring out the field goal team. You can make the argument to go for it, but look, I trust our defense. Our defense has been a little bit spotty today, but I think they can get a stop and bring this game into overtime. We're already 2-0 in overtime so far this year, as the chip shot from Piper Gerdes is good. 29-29. Kansas State has 35 seconds and 3 timeouts, so a game-winning drive here is certainly doable. I don't think time's an issue. It's just a matter of getting a couple plays together. This Kansas defense has not allowed big plays throughout the duration of this game, which I think is a big reason why Coach Puma Whitlock felt comfortable kicking the field goal. They're going to run the ball here on first down. Giddens gets around 6 or 7. I don't get what they're doing. I would try for the score rather than run the clock out and send it to overtime. Final play of the fourth. Johnson loses yards. He's wrapped up by Jason Gilliam. And with that, we're headed to OT once again for the 3rd time over the last 4 games. Our team must be addicted to overtime, and we're already 2-0. We came from behind in both of those games to tie it, and ultimately won it in the overtime period. Against TCU back in Week 5, we only needed 1 overtime. Last week against Houston, we needed 2. We'll see what happens here on the road against Kansas State. Again, it's a little bit different because it's a road game, a rivalry game, and the best team we've seen all year. Tails never fails. We win the toss, and we're going to start on defense. It is worth noting that we lost the toss in our 2 overtime wins. Maybe that was the good luck charm. I don't know. But we're going to make the analytically correct decision and let the Wildcats start with possession of the football. First play from the 25. Here's Avery Johnson up the middle. Fires for Dante Cephas. Again, O.J. Burrows nearly could have made a play on that ball, but he just wasn't able to. 1st and 10 at the 10. Johnson goes short. Garrett Oakley with the touchdown. A quick 2-play drive for Kansas State. And with that, it's a 7-point game. I think there might be discussion about going for 2 here, but I think realistically when you're the first team to score, just kick the extra point. That's what the Wildcats do. And now our offense has their backs against the wall. But this is where they've thrived all year. Let's see if we can get another touchdown and look to tie or win the game. On 3rd and 7, Daniels under pressure. He is sacked. Oh, no. And this game's going to come down to a 4th and long. It's Jordan Allen who leads the pressure. And it comes down to this. 4th and 15. The undefeated season is on the line here for the Jayhawks. Daniels looks to throw it. Looks downfield. It is caught by Jared Casey inside the 5 to the 1. A gain of nearly 30 for Jared Casey. And the game stays alive. A huge play there for the offense. And Kansas will continue to breathe. 1st and goal. It's a pitch for Luke Grimm. Walks it in for a touchdown. And now the biggest question of the day. Do you go for 2? Try to end the game, or do you take the points? Again, I think the analytically correct decision is to go for 2, and that's what I would normally preach here. But sometimes when you're in the position to make the call, you need some big cojones. And I would argue kicking the extra point here to send this game into double overtime is the right move. Because again, I have faith in our team to win this game. We've been a little bit inconsistent in the red zone. We're going to take the 1, and we're going to keep the game going. Keep in mind now, in the 2nd overtime, if either team were to score a touchdown, we have to go for 2. Jalen Daniels on the run. That's a good start. He gets around 15. And Kansas brings it to the 10. Now it's a 3rd down, though. We'll see if they can punch it in, and if they don't, what they'll do on 4th down. Daniels has some running room, keeps it himself, and he is in for a touchdown. Jalen Daniels with the rushing score, and now the offense has no choice. They have to go for 2 and look to make it an 8-point game. We'll see if they can punch it in. They decided not to go for 2 in the 1st overtime, as it is a direct snap for Devin Neal, and he's in. A little trickery from the Kansas offense, and they lead it by 8. So with that, Kansas State cannot win the game here in double overtime. They need a touchdown and a 2 to tie it. On 2nd and inches, it's Dante Cephas. He gets a 1st down inside the 10. The Wildcats are getting closer and closer to this end zone, but remember, they've got to get the 2 as well. Johnson, short throw. Garrett Oakley walks it in. Garrett Oakley with his 2nd touchdown of the overtime period alone. 44-42, and now Kansas State has to punch it in to keep this game alive and send it into a third overtime. Johnson keeps it himself. He is in! 44-44. We're going to overtime number 3. And for those of you who may forget the new college overtime rules, it's alternating 2-point conversions now. We'll start with Kansas State. Their first try, it's a handoff for Giddens, and he does not get it! A huge tackle by Cornell Wheeler, and now Kansas can win it if they convert here on the 2-point try. Daniels looks to throw it, can't find anybody open, rolls to the right, tries to run, he does not get it. So neither team converts, and we will move to overtime number 4. Kansas now will start with the ball. Daniels hands it off for Devin Neal, and he does not get it. So now Kansas State can win it with a 2-point conversion here in the 4th overtime. With the game on the line, the defense has got to come up and get another stop. We'll see if the Wildcats can finish the upset. It is broken up, incomplete, and we are now headed to a 5th overtime. Neither team able to convert in overtimes 3 or 4. We'll see a third time's the charm. Kansas State starts with it. Johnson calls for motion. Dante Cephas takes the wrong rushing lane, and he does not get it again. Now Kansas gets it back with a chance to win. Daniels looks to throw it. Can't find anybody. Goes short for Morrison. He's in! And the Jayhawks win it! The 15-game Sunflower Showdown losing streak is over! 46-44 in not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 overtimes! What a win for the Jayhawks, who are now 8-0. This team continues to find the craziest ways to win football games. Every game with this team feels like a roller coaster. It feels like we shouldn't be winning any of these matchups. We're seriously a few plays away from being 4-4, but we just continue to find ways to win down the stretch. Good teams find ways to win good football games. Do we deserve to be 8-0? Probably not, if we're being realistic. But again, good teams find a way, and we continue to find a way to win. This time it took a little bit longer, going into 5 overtimes with a lot of 2-point conversions, a lot of missed 2-point conversions from both sides. We'll start with Kansas State. I thought Avery Johnson had a really good game. The interception was a killer, though, and if not for that play, they would have won the game. But nonetheless, I thought he was really impressive. DJ Giddens on the ground had a big day himself. And then through the air, a number of guys impressed. Oakley, Brown, Cephas, Jackson. Defensively, the Wildcats started off pretty well. I feel like they tailed off a little bit in the second half. They got some big stops late, especially with some of those 2-point conversions, but it wasn't enough. Jalen Daniels was pretty solid, 19 of 29, 250 and a score. Really not his best game, but he was still quite good. On the ground, this was the Devin Neal show, 15 for 182 and 2 scores, including a 97-yarder. Daniels had some nice runs on the ground as well. He did take a couple of sacks, though, through the air. Again, it was very balanced. Luke Grimm led the way. Jared Casey had a big game, 5 for 75, both season highs. And then defensively, it wasn't perfect, but we got big sacks when we needed to. We got the huge pick 6 by Bryant. And when we needed stops in overtime on those 2-point conversions, we got them. Kansas State converted in the second overtime, but they failed 3 2-point conversions in a row. And that ended up being the difference. Had they gotten the 2 in either the third or fourth overtime, they would have won the game. So again, other than the Arizona State game, every one of our in-conference games has been wild. And we could have easily lost any of these games, but again, we continue to find ways to win. Kobe Bryant, your Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week with his pick 6. And with that, we'll take a look at our Week 9 recap across the nation. We're going to start in Kennesaw State. Who would have thought? As they face off against undefeated number 18 Liberty, currently the highest-ranked Group of 5 school. But the Owls look to change that as they attempt to put Liberty on upset alert, and they would be successful. The now 2-5 Kennesaw State Owls knock off Liberty 28-24. Liberty's first in-conference loss since 2022. Big game for the quarterback Davis Bryson. He only threw 1 incompletion. Caden Salter played well for Liberty as well, but it wasn't enough and now they're going to need to be pretty much perfect if they want to be the highest-ranked Group of 5 team and make the playoff. Louisville has lost 2 games. They've got to win this one here against Boston College, but the Eagles had other plans. Boston College with the win in a huge game from the tight end Morales as they hang on to win over the Louisville Cardinals, who are now unranked, dropping to 5-3, 20-13 your final. Boston College has had some good wins, albeit some of those wins haven't really aged all that well, with Michigan State and Missouri both underperforming. But Louisville's a good team. Tyler Shuck was pretty mediocre, as that brings us to TCU. Kind of like us, every TCU game is basically on crack. They're facing off against undefeated Texas Tech, looking to knock off the Red Raiders, and they would do so as Texas Tech loses their first in-conference game of the season in a close one to their in-state foes, TCU, 25-21. Texas Tech now 6-2 overall, 4-1 in Big 12 play as they drop out of the rankings with an inefficient but solid game from quarterback Josh Hoover. Baron Morton was okay and Taj Brooks scored twice, but ultimately it was not enough. Let's head to Virginia Tech, facing off against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets with Heisman favorite Haynes King, who's been unbelievable this season, and this game ended up being really exciting. We haven't really talked about the Hokies a whole lot this season, but they are very quietly 5-2. Junior quarterback Kyron Drones had a really big day through the air, throwing for 3 scores, including this one that put Virginia Tech up 38-35 late, giving Haynes King an opportunity to lead his team down the field for a potential Heisman moment, but he's picked off in the end zone. Dorian Strong spoils the comeback for the Heisman hopeful. Virginia Tech knocks off Georgia Tech 38-35, and the Hokies climb all the way up to number 18, doing what nobody else has been able to do, stop Haynes King. He was picked off twice in the loss, while Kyron Drones was the better of the 2 quarterbacks today. Let's head out to Boulder. Colorado coming off their first loss of the year last week, looking to rebound against a tough, underrated Cincinnati squad. This game ended up being quite competitive as Colorado has looked really vulnerable over these last couple of games. Cincinnati would continue to battle with them down the stretch, and ultimately the Bearcats would be the ones to come out on top, 31-30, with a really solid game from quarterback Brendan Sorsby and an inefficient day through the air for Colorado's Shedeur Sanders, who continues to be very inconsistent as a passer. Colorado loses 2 in a row. They are now unranked. Sorsby did throw 2 interceptions, but overall, he was efficient otherwise, making some big-time throws. Johnson and Prater were huge for Cincinnati, while Shedeur Sanders only completed half of his passes. Even though Colorado has outperformed expectations, I think Sanders has been a little bit underwhelming as a passer this year, and he's been passed up by other quarterbacks in this year's draft, including Jalen Daniels. Let's head out to North Texas. This matchup against Tulane is quite literally one of the biggest games of the college football season this year. I know that seems crazy, a Group 5 matchup. With Liberty losing earlier this week, you can make an argument that these are the 2 best Group 5 teams in America right now, of course vying for a playoff spot. Tulane, ranked, beat Kansas State and Oklahoma. North Texas, undefeated. Both of these teams have brilliant quarterbacks, and as you would expect, this ended up being a dogfight. But it was Ty Thompson who led the way for the Green Wave over North Texas, 28-22, as Tulane wins the Battle of the Green. I guess that's what I'm going to call it now. I was hoping to see more out of Chandler Morris, who's being considered as a potential Heisman candidate. He wasn't bad per se, but I feel like if you're being considered for the Heisman, you've got to have some statement games in some statement wins, and this could have been it. Ty Thompson, on the other hand, was brilliant. 78% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, making big throws all day. Let's take a look at one of the biggest matchups in the SEC this week. Number 3, Oklahoma. Number 12, Ole Miss. Both teams with 1 loss. This ended up being a defensive battle with a 2-point lead late for Oklahoma, 16-14. Ole Miss gets it last, though, looking to drive down the field for an opportunity to potentially kick a game-winning field goal, and they're moving it nicely. They're getting a big drive here at a quarterback, Jackson Dart, and even though their offense has struggled throughout this game, they're getting closer and closer to field goal range, as this run by Ulysses Bentley would give them a first down to center the kick and an opportunity now to win the game. With time expiring from 37, it's going to be close, and he got it! Ole Miss beats the Sooners 17-16. The big story, though, is on the injury front with Jackson Arnold, who got banged up in the first half, replaced by seventh-year senior Casey Thompson, who really wasn't all that bad. But regardless, I think it's time to learn LinkedIn, buddy. I think the QB switch certainly hurt things for Oklahoma, and their offense really wasn't able to get anything going, truthfully, with either quarterback in the game. While Jackson Dart threw 2 interceptions, he really wasn't that good either. But he ultimately leads Ole Miss to the win as we head to Tuscaloosa. Obviously, this season has not gone to plan for Alabama, but they have won 4 of 5, and they've been playing some good football. But they would go into the fourth quarter down by 12, needing a huge set of possessions from junior quarterback Jalen Milroe, and ultimately, that's exactly what they got. Jalen Milroe was unbelievable today, leading the Tide to a high-scoring win, 50-48. The Crimson Tide continue to climb up. They are back at number 13. And even though Alabama struggled early this year, it looks like the Tide are back. Jalen Milroe with 550 scrimmage yards and 6 touchdowns, completely flipping the script after his rough start to the year, looking like a potential Heisman candidate and high draft pick. Brady Cook was brilliant as well for Missouri, not to blame for the loss, but hey, it's never a bad day when Missouri loses. UCF facing off against BYU, a big matchup within the Big 12. Obviously, UCF, one of the better teams within the conference, sitting at 6-1. This game ended up being quite competitive, with UCF really in control throughout most of it going into the fourth quarter, and BYU needed a big comeback to potentially make some noise. This touchdown possession would bring the Cougars within 2, but ultimately it would be too little too late. UCF hangs on for the win, 28-26, with a strong fourth quarter from quarterback Jerry Bohannon. We're going to play against BYU in a couple of weeks. The Cougars are certainly not bad, and they gave UCF their best fight. It's been a very opposite season for these two teams, Miami and Florida State, but whenever they play against each other, you should always expect a battle, and that it was. Miami has been one of the best teams in the country this year, and ultimately they were able to hang on for the win, 38-31 over the Florida State Seminoles, who fall to 3-5, continuing their disappointing season. But again, the story continues to be Miami. They were down 28-0 at halftime in Week 1 against Florida. Obviously, they didn't win that game, but they had a strong comeback, and since that matchup, they quite literally have been one of the 2 or 3 best teams in college football. I may not be a huge Mario Cristobal fan, but I will give credit when credit is due. These guys are rolling. Cam Ward is playing better than just about any quarterback in the country, and his stock has gone way up throughout this year as we head to UNLV for some Mountain West action. Likewise with Tulane, Boise State, another team to watch out for as a Group 5 representative in the playoff. Ultimately, Boise State would win a close one, 26-21, over the Rebels, a team who we beat earlier in the year. But it's not all fun and games for Boise State because their starting quarterback, Malachi Nelson, broke his wrist. And unlike Jackson Arnold, he's not going to have as much luck injury-wise. He'll be out for 7 weeks. Maddox Madsen only threw 3 incompletions coming off the bench, 2 of which were interceptions. And that's not to mention Ashton Jeanty, the star running back, is already hurt. Partial ACL tear a couple weeks ago. He's out for 5 more weeks. Their starting left tackle also hurt. Dislocated elbow for Cage Casey. But nonetheless, these guys are continuing to win games, and if they run the table with some of their most important starters out, it's hard to make an argument against them being the Group 5 rep in the playoff. Rutgers facing off against USC. This is the last really challenging game on the schedule for Rutgers, and if they win this one, I feel like they can run the table and make the playoff. So this is quite literally the biggest game in the Rutgers program recent history, and ultimately, they passed the test with flying colors. This late touchdown from Kyle Monangai would give Rutgers the edge over the Trojans, who lose their 3rd game of the year, 34-31. So Rutgers now sits at 7-1, and their schedule is remarkably easy to end the year. They play pretty much nobody good. If they go undefeated, they are going to the playoff. Rutgers fully controls their own fate. Playoff is no longer a pipe dream for them. It's the expectation. We'll wrap things up in College Station. Texas A&M has been maybe the best team in the SEC this year, if not certainly one of. Since their Week 1 loss to Notre Dame, they've been undefeated. But they ended up getting in a battle with an LSU team who was severely underperformed at 2-5. And ultimately, the Tigers finally would kind of put everything together in this game, winning at 31-28 with a huge game through the air from quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. Obviously, I feel like it's still way too late for LSU to really revive their season. They're still 3-5. They've still got a lot more tough games. I think they play Alabama in a couple of weeks, but still a good win for them to try to at least get back to relevancy, even if playoffs are completely out of the picture. We had a lot of movement in the 20s this week, so teams like Iowa make big climbs up to number 16. Notre Dame wins over Navy. They sit at 21. Penn State is now ranked. Should they be? No, but they are. Ohio State takes care of business against Nebraska. Oregon remains number 1 and undefeated with a comfortable win over Tulane. Utah blows out Houston. They're still undefeated and still number 3, while Oklahoma State and Arizona win their games. Looking around the rest of the country, Syracuse beats Pitt in a rivalry. Syracuse 4-3. Those guys are no slouch. SMU number 10 as they ended up beating Duke. Washington wins their first game since like week 3. Kentucky beats Auburn 29-26 in a close matchup. Fresno State drops 64 against their rivals San Jose State in an absolute blowout. So now that we're here at week 10, this is really where the college football season meets a turning point because the college football playoff bracket is now out. We'll start with the media rankings. We currently sit at the 5 spot, having Michigan jumped us and jumping Georgia ourselves. As for the college football playoff rankings, these are the ones that now really matter because ultimately they determine who makes the playoff. We currently sit at the 5 spot, very similar to the media rankings. So as it stands now, we are obviously slated in the playoff, considering there's now only 3 undefeated teams, I'm pretty sure, period, in the entire country, with just Oregon and Utah. Utah has won an extra in-conference game, so technically they are in first place. So because of that, we don't have a first-round bye. We're currently slated as the 7th seed, and would host SMU in the first round, and if we win that, we would head on to the Rose Bowl to face off against Michigan. Obviously, there's a lot of football left to be played, so I really don't want to take too much stock into this, but it is cool to at least have a very real chance of making the college football playoff, but nonetheless, we don't have a lot of margin for error. I imagine with the deserved Big Ten and SEC bias, if we lose one game, I could see us taking a pretty steep drop, especially if we don't play well in said loss. So hopefully we can continue to stack up these wins as we take a look at our players of the week, of course, including Kobe Bryant as the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. As for the Heisman watch, no major changes. Jalen Milroe climbs up to 4, and given how well Milroe has played in recent weeks, I could see him continuing to climb, but otherwise, it seems like we kind of know who's going to be in the running. The bowl projections are now here, and obviously we know we're currently slated with SMU in the first round of the playoff, but still a lot of football left to go. The award watch lists are out, and we've got a lot of Jayhawks. Jalen Daniels, 3rd for Player of the Year. Puma Whitlock, 1st for Coach of the Year. Imagine if we win Coach of the Year in year 1. Jalen Daniels, top quarterback, he's in 2nd. Dekias Brinkley, the true freshman, 2nd for Best Defensive Player. Best Defensive Back, Damani Maxon's in 1st. Kobe Bryant is in 2nd. Devin Dye is in 4th. Marvin Grant is in 9th. We've got 4 guys on the list. Devin Neal, 1st for Best Running Back. Lombardi Award, Dekias Brinkley is 2nd. Golden Arm, Jalen Daniels is 3rd. Dekias Brinkley, 1st for Best Defensive End. Michael Ford, 12th for Best Interior Lineman. Jared Casey, 10th for Best Tight End. That kind of surprises me. Defensive Coordinator, 1st for the Broyles Award. Offensive Coordinator is in 3rd. And then we have nobody else. But still, a whole lot of guys being represented in the awards. But now we've got our hardest stretch of the season upcoming. We do have a bye week, but after that, Iowa State, really good team. BYU on the road. Colorado, very tough matchup. And then on the road against BYU. We certainly have a chance to run the table and potentially go undefeated in the Big 12 championship against most likely Utah. But it's going to be a real challenge considering 4 of our 5 conference games, we've been 1 or 2 plays away from losing all of them. Is it only a matter of time until our maybe fluky stretch of wins ends? Or will this team continue to find ways to miraculously win some football games? Next episode, we've got a 2-for-1. Week 10. Got some big matchups, particularly in the Big 10 with Oregon and Michigan. Penn State and Ohio State. And then week 11 as well, we've got some more big games on the slate, including our matchup against Iowa State. Hope everyone enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.